This is KGNU FM 88.5 Boulder, KGNU 1390 Denver. Stay tuned for Metro.
Spring cleaning time is here, and KGNU is now accepting donations of LPs, CDs, stereo gear, and other gently used media for our annual record and CD sale, better known as the Yard Bazaar, in Denver, Saturday, August 31st, and in Boulder, Saturday, September 7th. Clear up some space and give those overlooked musical gems a new home in support of independent community radio. Drop off donations at either our Boulder or Denver studios, or arrange a pickup by contacting Dave at kgnu.org or calling 303-825-5468.
I'm Michelle Simpson, the host of Block Talk. Growing Our Next Generation is the theme of this year's Boulder County Juneteenth celebration that begins this coming Friday on June 14th. As part of the overall event, there will be a banned books dialogue on Monday, the 17th of June. I will be there to moderate the discussion. For details on this and all Juneteenth events, please visit the KGNU website, kgnu.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to Metro on KGNU. This is your host, Candice, Candy Action Bailey. Today I will be interviewing candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner, Hashim Coates. He is a former executive director for Black, Brown, Red Badge. He is a Navy veteran, an activist, and it is time that we dig in and get some conversation started around what is a commissioner and why are we here today looking at such a crazy field, because there's only two candidates, and we're going to do some contrast and comparison in reference to those candidates, really talk about what Mr. Coates sees as his vision, his platform, and why he believes he's the candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner. Welcome, Mr. Coates. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm happy to be here. I am all the things, excited, nervous, anxious, but I'm happy to be here and I'm excited. Yes.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk a little bit about what's going on with you. So about a year ago, there was some stirring and rambling in Arapahoe County about the open commission position that was coming up. And as we were looking at the field of candidates that were potentially throwing their hat in the ring, there were a couple of very interesting things that stood out to me. I knew you had intention early on, and I knew that Rhonda Fields would be the other person who was coming into this arena as well. I want to get to know you a little bit. I want the listeners to hear, who is Hashim Coates? I mentioned you are a former executive director for Black, Brown, Red Badges. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that first so we even know what that is.
Yes, I was a former executive director for Black, Brown, Red Badge. And that was an organization that was designed to help keep Black and Brown cannabis owners in the industry. A lot of times people think that the hardest lift is getting into the industry, but the truth of the matter is the hardest lift is staying within the industry. When you look at the entry rate versus the exit rate of businesses coming in and leaving the cannabis industry, it's almost the same because so many businesses fall out of there. But yes, I worked with notables such as Wanda James, who owns Simply Pure. Wanda is the first Black woman to ever be licensed for cannabis dispensary in the United States, not just Colorado. She's also a CU regent.
So I wanted to tap in a little bit. You're also a Navy veteran. I think that's something we need to talk about. You are the only armed forces veteran on the campaign card.
Yes.
And I think that is critical. You have lived a life that is also serving our country. So I see you as a servant in our nation, period. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit. What is the importance of being a veteran and knowing what that actually entails?
Being a veteran, I guess, would say the first time I ever became a professional public servant. Servitude is nothing new to me. I was basically raised in that type of situation growing up, volunteering at church, even taking it a step further and helping my mom out when she was president of the Greater Park Hill Neighborhood Association, helping do things with there. But my grandmother was really instrumental that got me started into politics. She was a good friend of Ari Taylor, who was the first Black woman to ever be elected to the Colorado State Legislature and helped on our campaign. And so my grandmother would volunteer in the political realm. So that's what stood out to me in politics. but she would also volunteer her time and drive the van for the Red Cross that used to be off of First in Havana. And I would go with her doing that, driving patients back and forth to their medical appointments. So servitude is something that's nothing new to me. My time in the Navy, like I raised my hand at 18, like that's all I had planned to do. I took no SAT, I took no ACT, because an 18-year-old knows everything, right? Doing my lifetime, 20 years in the Navy. So I raised my hand, I took the oath to go defend the freedoms and the values, the idealisms of this country. And I got hurt. I came back home and I still had that urgent need to serve. I got started in my advocacy work through HIV, STD prevention. And this is important to me because I remember I had a cousin that died and I was wondering, like, why'd he die? And they said, he died of cancer, but he had these lesions on his body. And so learning that those lesions were complications of AIDS and HIV, I really felt angered that the family was ashamed to say what he died from. So that was the spark of my advocacy work. From there, I went on to work for organizations such as Colorado AIDS Project, also One Colorado, COCA, People of Color Consortium Against AIDS. And then I transitioned into electoral politics, and fast forward, here I am.
So tell listeners how I'm speaking listeners today to Hashim Coates. He is the candidate for Arapahoe County 18th Judicial Commission seat. Please tell the folks how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. One, they can come to any of the community events that I do in the district as I'm knocking doors and canvassing. Before I start, I have a coffee with chats with Coates for Commissioner, or they can go to my website, and that's www.hashimcoates.com. They can go there, get information about me, or they can shoot me an email at info@coates4commissioner.com, and I'll reply to them as well too.
Awesome. I love that you're so accessible. And one of the things that I really heard shining through is that you have deep, deep, deep Colorado roots. For me, that's really important when I'm thinking about a candidate, right? Because if you're not connected to community, or you just make it seem as if you're connected to community, it's not the same as being boots on the ground, accessible, and really working for the people. I also was looking at your sign, and it says, unbought and bossed by the people. Is that what it says? Say what your slogan kind of is.
Gotcha. That's the gist of it. It says unbought, people bossed. There's so much wrapped into my whole campaign structure. So I went with the colors of black and gold, and people can be saying, oh, you did that for CU. And I'm like, no, I graduated from Metro State University of Denver. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, you did that. Right. They say, oh, you did that because of your fraternity. Because I remember Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity that has notables such as Dr. King, Thurgood Marshall, Cornel West, W.B. Du Bois, and so on. But I was like, no, I did that because it represents the district. And people are like, how? The black represents the combination of all colors and all people within the district. The gold represents the value of the people and our cultures. So everything is by design of my campaign. So my slogan of unbought, people bossed was inspired by the great late Shirley Chisholm. Yeah, who was the first Black woman to run for a national party for president. She was the first Black woman to enter into the halls of Congress. And she was also one of my grandmother's role models as well, too. I remember the stories about her.
She also happens to be my cousin, strangely. So thank you. Shout out Shirley Chisholm. A man after my own heart, speaking about my own family. I love that you are so intentional, because I didn't even know the story of the black and gold. And I find that very interesting. I want to switch gears a little bit, because there's also another vernacular that's being kind of talked about in a weird way in community. So you also have lived experience with the carceral and the legal system in the state of Colorado. And you know me, I'm all about getting people with lived experience and elevating their voices. And so you are a man after my own heart. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I noticed there was a huge dynamic in the room that was just not making sense to me. Your opponent, Rhonda Fields, and I won't even say opponent, the other individual who happens to be a candidate, because you're not against each other, you're just working for the people. And so I thought about this very deeply when I was listening to, or maybe I was reading an article about Rhonda's experience in the criminal legal system and your experience in the criminal legal system. Rhonda has 2 charges of theft, 20 years apart. And listeners, I want to be very clear. I do this work. This is what I do. And when we talk about rates of recidivism, which means whether or not you are likely to reoffend in any way, shape, or form, that recidivism actually increases with someone like Rhonda, who has a 20-year gap with the same exact charges or tendencies or criminologic behaviors in their background. That means they are going to reoffend again. And for me, when I was thinking about a county commissioner, I was like, one, would I want somebody who had the history of stealing in their background, which is actually highlighted over and over again about running for office if you have these specific crimes, which was interesting. But when it came to you, you were slammed, right? You were completely torn apart. They're like, he shouldn't be this and he shouldn't be that. And I found that very interesting, but also very divisive and very damaging to a Black man. And then the verses, a Black man versus a Black woman, and the way that Rhonda would be put on a pedestal, but the way that you seem to be getting this other form of retaliation against you because you were also involved in the criminal legal system. Can you talk a little bit about what that's been like and kind of where you're standing in this?
It's been hard, right? And nothing has ever come to me easy except for gaining weight. So when I thought about making this decision to run, I had this conversation. I had this conversation with lots of people, and people like, well, that, and, you should look into sealing your record. And I was like, well, first of all, I have a Google profile on it, right? I'll give people a quick background of it. If they want to go to my website, I do talk about it. I have a 40-some minute campaign video that is attached to my website, and I go more into the details about what happened because my race is about being honest and transparent and transformative change because your elected officials are people. I am people, you are people, it's us. So I was involved in a situation in 2016, and a little bit background to that. My grandmother, my heart, I have two names tattooed on my body, her name and my grandfather's name. My grandmother died in October of 2016, and I recorded her funeral services on my iPad. Fast forward to December when the incident happened, I was involved in a situation where someone who I thought I knew robbed me. They wanted to make me pay to get my stuff back. And I reached out to Aurora Police Department 3 times asking for assistance on this. I was failed every single time. They told me to go deal with the situation myself. I tried, things spun out of control. I still fully cooperated with the police, and I was elevated from victim to defendant. That is the synopsis in the radio amount of time, but I talk more about it on my website. So fast forward throughout that, people need to know what they need to know. This situation happened when I was 41 years old. I've never been involved in the criminal legal system before, and it found its way to just take over, right? And I intentionally chose to run for office and not seal my record to show people how the system broke or is broken, and to also inspire people to still continue to run and pursue their dreams, whatever their dreams might be, that they still have value. People still have value regardless. I don't believe in a second chance. I believe in another chance because we're human and we will always continuously make mistakes. And I think we should be valued upon our life's work as a whole and not the worst days of our life. But I also find it highly irritating that the contrast is there, right? And that I take more criticism than the other side gets. And I think that's just one of the things that happens in nature, or I shouldn't say nature, in society that we're in right now, because I'm unbought, people bossed. I'm not representing, I don't have 14 years of political debts and favors to pay back. The only special interest that I have to pay back are the people. So it benefits a certain group of people to continuously to portray this in a light that is not fair, equal, equitable, or whatever adjective you want to use to describe it, in a way that will stop the candidate that is here for the people. I don't give a damn about anything at the federal level. I care, but for this race, it doesn't pertain at the federal level. All I want to do is make sure that people are able to stay housed, that seniors are not losing their homes, that water and land remains clear, and that we're able to find revenue for Arapahoe County without raising taxes. That's what I'm running for.
Listeners, I am speaking with Hashim Coates. He is the candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner in the 18th Judicial. Tell me what, I think it's critical. This is important. What does a commissioner do? Everyone I talk to doesn't even know what a county commissioner actually does.
The county commissioner is the position, and this elected seat touches the human lives at the most impactful, the most trying moments of their life, right? And I say that like this is the humanitarian seat and requires someone active participation in the county because of the county commissioner's job. They're elected official and they serve as part of the governing body of Arapahoe County. Their main function is to look at the budget and to decide where appropriation money goes, right? But they also do policy making that deals with local ordinances and regulations that affect the county and its residents, budgeting. Are we giving too much money here? Are they giving too much money there? Why is the sheriff's department over 40% of the budget of Arapahoe County when human services are struggling or doing the best they can to make it by, and why they can't afford services to make sure that our seniors, are able to have their places cleaned up, or those that need in-home care services are not sitting around in squalor all the time. So it's providing that complex balance on that. They also oversee county operations, such as our public works, our law enforcement, health services, parks and recreation. They weigh in on the environment as well, too. While my district is basically, there's some few unincorporated parts of my district, but my district ranges from Yosemite out to Powhatan, from Colfax down to Jewel. Those are the rough estimates of my district in the northern part of Aurora. I still have a say-so as far as what happens with the environment as a vote of 5. And we have to protect our water and our clean air. So those are things that the county commissioner does. But my most favoritist is constituent services, right? I've lived in this county since 2004 and 2005. And I can't recall one time that I've ever seen a county commissioner have a public meeting. Right? Like in my district, right? To just be like, hey, I am Commissioner so-and-so, and this is what we have going on in Arapahoe County. What's going on with you? On my day 2, once elected, that's what I'm doing. My goal is to have a meeting somewhere throughout County Commission District 5, one day a month. At the bare minimum, I promise I will do that quarterly. But I would really love to do that once a month to make sure that we're interactive there. So that's what a county commissioner does, and not rest on their laurels. So, yeah.
Well, you really took us to school, and anyone who listens to me knows that I often use the terminology chase the bag, meaning if you want control, the money is where you must go. And so the commission position seat is critical in Arapahoe County because it helps us look at the way our budget is being spent. And I don't even know who said this, but someone said, if you want to know the priorities of a city, look at their budget. And so law enforcement and policing are taking between 40 and 70% across Arapahoe County. So that means Arapahoe, the city of Aurora, Centennial, all of these areas, it's 40 to 70% of their budget for law enforcement to be in the room. And so as there is a priority that happens to land in the law enforcement branch of life, I think about all the other things that you talked about: environmental justice, human services, services for our veterans, our elderly, those who need us, who have contributed to our communities for decades, and somehow they're just getting slighted. I know every county commissioner, and I speak with them quite often. And one of the things I wanted to kind of run into in speaking with you today was thinking about, I wanted to get in a little bit about what are your priorities platform-wise? What's leading you that way?
Okay.
Listeners, you're listening to KGNU. This is your host, Candice, Candy Action Bailey. And today we're speaking with Hashim Coates, the candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner out of the 18th Judicial. He is a Navy veteran, not an activist, but an advocate, because in his words, activism has some type of limit. Advocacy never, ever does.
That's right.
And so I'm proud to have Mr. Coates on today. But let's talk a little bit about your platform, please. You've already talked about day 2, which is fantastic because generally people like, Mike Johnston, he had this 100-day plan or whatever, and that didn't work out too well. But I'd like to talk about what your platform is. What will you be working on, and what are your priorities?
So listen, I want to be clear. I'm not anti-Mike Johnston. I don't need his billionaire buddies to kick in and pour more dark money into this race that has already been poured into this race in a race that there's never been a primary for. The amount of money that's poured in here is absurd. So I don't want to trigger anything like that because I'm fighting for the people. My platform is this. Listen, the environment is my hard line, right? Without clean air, clean water, we can't fight over apples and oranges and whether, the Nuggets are better than the Lakers or whatever. We can't fight over that without clean air and clean water. Outside of that, or addition to that, housing, development, and community safety all tie together for me, right? And it ties together for me because most of the crime that are happening in Arapahoe County is occurring because people are trying to get food, clothing, and shelter, the basic Maslow hierarchy of needs. So I feel as a commissioner, it'd be my job to do work with Arapahoe County Works. There's already helps the work get people gainfully employed, but also to take it a step further. I had a conversation with one of the Arapahoe County directors, and I was like, hey, when you all give out contracts, do you give preference points to people who actually hire from the district or from the county? And it was an innovative idea to her. Well, it's things like that I want. If you hire from Arapahoe County, we'll give you preference points in your contract. That way we get people from the county getting good paying jobs. They're able to get food, clothing, and shelter, and the crime rate drops and their quality of life begins to build and turn better. But I also want to work to break the binary of when I say community safety. Oftentimes we think community safety is the fact of I don't have someone attacking me, I don't have someone robbing me. Community safety is different for all people. Sometimes community safety is I need protection from the elements. Community safety might be I need protection from starvation. I need food. So I want to change the binary of that. And that brings into our seniors, our disabled community, and children. Arapahoe County is at a budget shortfall right now. If we continue on the path that we're going, we're going to have to cut services. These are services like our roads are already in horrible condition. 41% of our Arapahoe County roads and bridges have already been listed in poor condition, right? We're going to start to lose these other protective services. One way we can do this, we can raise taxes, and I know just how much everyone loves that, right? Right. There's two other ways, right? One, we can go ahead and debruce. I actually support debrucing. Debrucing is the fast, most immediate a way that we can go ahead and do this. This means that you just have to give up the fact of not getting back that $50 to $75 check that you get back. Look at it like this. Money spent is money gone. All right. So it's not a tax increase. The money's already gone. Just let it stay where it is. Your $75, $50 is more collective than it is for not even getting you a good date out on the town. The other idea, this is innovative stuff, right? Start a county bank. If we start a county bank that operates like First Bank, Wells Fargo, and all the other big banks that we love so much, we do that as a county. We're able to keep the revenue here in the county. That way, we're able to go ahead and fix up our safety nets, fix our roads, and then also give out loans to small businesses, home loans to people that the banks traditionally ignore. So that's my platform in a nutshell. There's so much work to do because there's so much work that hasn't been done. And I am energetic and excited about the opportunity, about actually getting in there and doing the work like I am on the doors, like I'm doing the work myself.
Yes, you are. You are definitely fired up. You're ready to go. I love it. I wanted to give you a couple minutes to listeners. I'm speaking with Hashim Coates. He is a candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner. I wanted to give you the last closing thoughts, and then I'll close out with my thoughts. Tell the people how they can reach you, and then I'll give my final thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah. So listen, I'm easy to find. If there's something wrong going on and you need someone to speak into it, just look for me. I'll be there. Right. But listen, go to my website, www.hashim, HASHIMCOATES.com. You can reach me there. You can send me an email at info@coatesforcommissioner.com or on my social media. I want people to know this about this. There's never been a Democratic primary for this seat before. Arapahoe County District 5 is the most diverse county in Arapahoe County. It has two of the zip codes with the highest poverty levels within the state. This county deserves a representative that is going to stand up and say what's right for the sake of it being right and to represent them boldly and unapologetically. I have always done that. There has never been a time when I've spoken up against a wrong when I looked at it for a political calculation. I have always done it because it is the right thing to do. And that's instilled in me in who I am and who I've been. With this race also, I just want to make clear, this is about people. And I don't, and I love people. And as you were talking, Candice, you made a comment about vets. And I'm a veteran. And I don't talk much about veteran services of the county, even though I believe they're there. But I feel that issue really falls on the federal government more so than it does on the county government. But we need to have more money in the county so we can go ahead and take care of the federal shortfall, which is wild to me. But I don't think a veteran should ever go homeless. I don't think a veteran should ever miss a meal. I mean, we raised our hand to take an oath to die for this country. That is the smallest thank you that can ever be returned to a veteran. Also, I want to be clear about the police and like, listen, I understand. I can give some credit to why the budget is a little bit larger for the police system, because we have operations where Arapahoe County Sheriff's Department is picking up municipalities to provide services over there. So I want to acknowledge that too. And I also want to push back against the narrative that I'm just this anarchist that wants to destroy things as well too. I'm a firm believer. Listen, if you own anything, you are not a proponent of a lawless society. No, all right. Let's just be completely clear about that. I have utilized 911 many a times on my benefit, many a times on the benefit of other people. My grandmother was a Denver sheriff deputy or whatever. So, like, let's be clear. I believe that there should be proper, good, appropriate policing, not the thing that harms people. And don't get caught up in the narrative that police only create harm to Black people. It happens to poor people. So that's all the stuff that I want to talk about. Some of the stuff I want to talk about. As you all can tell by the rate of speech that I'm at, this is not my normal rate of speech. There's just so much stuff that I have to say that I want to say. But please check out my website. Shoot me your emails with your question, and I'll do you all this favor. If you ask me a question, I will try my best. You gotta have to forgive my background, but I'll try my best to give you a video response to the question and post that up on my social media, so you can make sure that when I'm telling you, I'm telling everyone the same thing. It's about consistency and transparency and transformative politics with my race, Hashim Coates, unbought, people bossed. I have no obligations to anyone in this race except to the people who elect me and the people who don't elect me, because I might be elected by few, but I'm a servant of everyone. I'm responsible to the people of Arapahoe County Commission District 5.
Take a breath. Mic drop. So, my final thoughts today, as I was speaking, listeners, with Hashim Coates, candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner, are very interesting because he touched on so many things: true public safety, true public health, what it means to be a representative versus just someone who sees that they are cashing a check or that they are in a room because they owe someone some political favor. I love your transparency. I love the fact that you're willing to talk about all things openly and publicly, and that you're not one of those back door, I'll have a conversation with you here, but I'll give 10 other people 10 different answers. When I'm thinking about who I'd be voting for, I am an Arapahoe County resident, by the way. I'm thinking very deeply about this commission seat, as everyone in Arapahoe County should be. This is a critical juncture, and as you stated, this is the first time there has ever even been a primary. And I also wanted to point out, Hashim and Rhonda Fields are not opponents. They are people who are running for a seat, not running against one another. And that these issues that we are talking about today are affecting everyone in our county. And we need someone who is a pragmatic thinker, that is willing to listen, collaborate, and be the change. The other thing that extremely touched me was the idea that you are ingenuitive and you are thinking about solutions to the things that are affecting the residents of Arapahoe County in a way that they are not even aware of. I was educated today, y'all. I found out some things that I absolutely did not know, and I might be a little bit involved in civics and politics. So it is always enlightening to speak with Hashim Coates. Get out there and vote. June 25th is the date that the primary election will be held in Arapahoe County. We need all voices and votes at that poll box. It is critical that our voices are heard and that we make a decision about who represents us going forward and who looks at the things in the budget that are affecting us as members of Arapahoe County in the worst and the best ways. I loved speaking with you today. Thank you for coming on. Again, you can reach Hashim Coates at his website.
www.hashimcoates.com.
And Coates is Coates. So please be aware when you are looking for Hashim's website. Coates is Coates. And you're listening to your girl, Candice, Candy Action Bailey, on KGNU Metro. Have a wonderful day. And remember, if it's not about action, it's not about anything. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.